Your willful ignorance does not change the fact that a queer person with the ability to give free trans healthcare is an integral character in One Piece. Hey, it's Ellie, welcome or welcome back to my channel. As someone in my Discord lovely put, the One Piece video is real! Since like the dawn of my channel, romance dawn if you will, I have talked about how much I love One Piece. And since the dawn of my channel and me saying that, y'all have wanted a One Piece video from me. And the reason why it's taken me so long is, well, I've been intimidated. I'm just gonna come out and say it. This is a show that means so much to me. And I have so much to say between the characters, the fandom, arcs, and theories, and all of this type of stuff that I didn't even know where to start, honestly. But I feel like I'm at a place in my creative journey and my life here on YouTube that I feel ready to tackle Usopp as a character. Wait, well, kinda. One Piece is a manga turned anime that started in 1997 with the anime airing in 1999, written and drawn by Eiichiro Oda. I personally did not get into the show until 2020. Shout out Crystal Chanel. She came onto Twitter and was just like, hey, I have a following now. All of you need to go watch One Piece right now. And I was just like, but like it's so long. And she was just like, okay, it's 2020. What you gotta wait for? You ain't got nothing else to do. And that's literally what I said when I like started watching One Piece. I was like, well, I ain't got nothing else to do, and clicked play.
Well, I ain't got nothing else to do.
And you know what? I was definitely that Danny DeVito meme from It's Always Sunny where he's watching that interpretive dance and he starts crying and he's like, I get it now. Girl, I get it now. I get it now. I am now a One Piece true believer and I am here today to spread the gospel. No, this is not a cult. But before I can dive first into my favorite characters, my favorite arcs, my theories, why your goat takes it up the butt, I need to lay some ground rules about One Piece. Akin more to my gacha video I made, I could not talk about any gacha games without first laying down how I feel about gacha games as a whole. Take this as kind of the same thing. I cannot talk about how much I love One Piece and everything I love about One Piece unless I like sit here and give all of my thoughts about One Piece, the fandom, media literacy, why it's political, all this other type of stuff. So that is why we are here today. And after the discourse train wreck that has been the last year in talking about One Piece, I really truly believe that One Piece is a media literacy test and you're failing it. Well, most of you are. Let's talk about that. If at any time you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe because I make videos like this all the time. Well, now I do. I can't wait to make more One Piece videos. And comment down below how you feel about the entire last year or so talking about One Piece, the media literacy of it all, AgendaPiece, politics, Booktok girlies getting into One Piece. We're going to talk about all of that today. So I want to hear your thoughts about it down below. And also because I really want to know what's your favorite One Piece character? Who's your favorite One Piece character rather? What is your favorite One Piece arc? What are some theories that you have? Oh, I can't wait to talk about theories. Oh, I can't wait. And hey, let's jump into it. And obviously, spoiler warning for One Piece and the manga. I will try to be very specific about my spoilers, just in case you're watching this and you have never watched One Piece, and maybe this will push you in the direction of watching One Piece, or maybe you have watched One Piece, but you're not where I'm going to be talking about, you know, certain spoilers today. Obviously, I had to talk about some stuff. I will try to be very careful about it, but I have to talk about some stuff in order to get my point across. I will be very specific about the types of spoilers that I have, so you will know when those are coming up, but just an overall warning for that. Yes, I did spell chimney wrong. Yes, I did look up specifically how to spell chimney so I wouldn't spell it wrong and still spelled it wrong. Yes, this picture has the quote under it, Zoro got stuck in a chimney, which spells chimney correctly, and I still got it wrong. Girl, I don't know.
Let me speak to the people, Piccolo. Let me speak. No one's stopping you. They need to hear this. 30. They need to hear this. One thing, I'm not a big fan of the government. 30 on 30. I'm not a big fan of the government.
So, first thing we need to talk about is how people treat anime and specifically shonen, especially when talking about literary analysis. And simply put, y'all don't. It has really only been in recent years in the mainstream audience of anime and shonen anime specifically have I've even seen a more robust discussion about the literary themes that you would see in shonen shows. And that is mostly thanks to shows like Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man that openly invite you to do so. If a show, especially a shonen, is not openly inviting you to look deeper into their themes and stuff like that, a lot of people just don't do that. That doesn't mean that that stuff isn't there, but I have found that that only in recent years in the mainstream have we seen people actively talk about, like, for example, how Denji is very clearly being groomed, or that in Jujutsu Kaisen these talks about power and fate and all of these other things are like now getting discussed on a wider scale. They've always been there. It's just now people want to discuss them because these shows openly invite you to talk about these types of things. Shounen anime is a subsect of anime that is aimed at an adolescent boy audience. Flashy fights and grand adventures take up most of the slots of this subgenre. And I feel like because of this, a lot of time on a literary level, these shows are not taken seriously. And I personally feel like it is because of everyone's favorite word, patriarchy, yay! Now, before you go crazy, no, I am not saying anime, specifically shonen anime, is inherently misogynistic. No. In addition to this definition, I am talking about how we choose to hold up patriarchy and what we have to do to make sure that this definition of patriarchy stays in power. What I am saying is that because of this age-old notion that we have about boys and how they are supposed to express themselves in the world, or rather not express themselves, like certain types of emotions are allowed, but others aren't, you know, that type of stuff. Do I feel like when it comes to shonen, because it is made for boys in mind, that nobody wants to engage with these things when it comes to those types of emotions? Take, for example, Deku from My Hero Academia. There were people online to this day genuinely sitting there saying that Deku is a horrible MC main character because he, let me check my notes here, cries a lot. Yeah, imagine a little boy watching the show, loving Deku, and seeing himself in Deku, because despite it all, despite that he's scared, despite that he's so emotional, he still gets the job done. He's still a hero at the end of the day. Imagine seeing that and like relating to that on a personal level because you yourself are emotional, and then going online and being told everywhere that he is the worst MC to ever MC because he cries a lot. How do you think that little boy would feel? Yeah, you see what I mean here? And this isn't just like a man thing either. Like patriarchy has to be held up by people, right? Both men and women are like at fault for doing this, for holding up patriarchy, for holding up what it means to be a woman, what it means to be the man, and all of these other stereotypes that we have. When you enforce that onto people, or take like times where people are trying to subvert that and then be like, this is bad because it's subverting what I naturally think of like a shonen manly man anime or like whatever the fuck, you're harming those little kids because you're teaching them that they should not have those emotions, that they need to take those and bottle them and put them away. And like all that matters in this life is how manly you are, whatever that means. Again, I'm gonna quote because whatever the fuck that means, because it changes from person to person as well. How manly you are, how you're able to be stoic and hide your emotions away, and all this other type of stuff, right? That is actively harmful to kids, especially men, right? And so I think people actively shy away from deeper conversations about shows like shonen and stuff like that, even though sometimes those themes are there, like again Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man, those themes are there, but people will go out of their way not to engage with that because they believe that shonen anime shouldn't have that stuff to begin with, because that's not what boys should be like have access to, you know? But again, to my point, these shows have these themes, right? People will try to argue that these shows never had these themes in the first place, but they absolutely do. These deeper, more literary and analytical and emotional and provocative themes, a lot of these shows have these, right? No one, like very few, I feel like mangakas go out and decide to just make a slap fest and call it a day. There's usually at least a little bit of something in there for you to like cling on to that like helps you just in life, or just have like deeper meaning and deeper themes and things like that. A really good example of this that I see all the time is Dragon Ball Z. So Dragon Ball Z is the shonen to end all shonens, right? It is a battle shonen to its very core. It's fight. And I still believe that that show, despite it all being fights and little to nothing else, still has some deeply profound things that you can take away from the show if you just look just a little bit deeper, just a little bit deeper. And that is namely the one of perseverance and community. I really love the idea that Dragon Ball Z is about the idea of never giving up. And that sounds cheesy, but I'm serious. Because no matter what mountains are put in front of you, and there will be some crazy ass mountains put in front of you, with enough hard work and perseverance, and most importantly, help from your community, you will overcome it. Community is a huge aspect of Dragon Ball Z that does not get talked about enough. Rarely ever is Goku and Vegeta just fighting to fight. Okay, Sometimes they are just fighting to fight, but a lot of the times they are fighting for each other, they are fighting for their homes, for their family, for their community. The entire reason why Goku goes Super Saiyan for the first time is because of a friend, you know? I mean, come on. It's such a beautiful idea that you have never really truly ever reached your peak, that you can always go further. And I think that is a wonderful thing to teach to anybody, but especially kids. Okay, so you may be wondering, why did you mention the patriarchy and what the fuck does this have to do with One Piece? Well, as I stated earlier, the patriarchy unfortunately only exists as we make it exist. If we keep touting and holding up the same harmful beliefs to kids and to adults all around the world, then the patriarchy, this idea that men are supposed to be these head honcho like type people and women are supposed to be submissive and all that type of stuff, stays intact. And these harmful beliefs get propped up by simple things that you wouldn't even really think of. The idea that saying Deku is this horrible MC because he's emotional and cries a lot, like I said, is going to have impact on people who do cry a lot, you know? I think there's a difference between, like, you know, emotional regulation and hiding and stuffing down your emotions. You know what I mean? There's a difference between learning how to, like, control your emotions and learning how to control your emotions, if you know what I mean. And I believe that this all stems from the idea that shonen aren't allowed to be anything more than just fight fests, because boys aren't allowed to have any other deeper introspection than that. Which brings me to One Piece. One Piece has been going on since the late 90s and is one of the highest grossing and just popular pieces of media just to ever exist. And yet, in the mainstream, in the West specifically, I cannot stress this enough, I am coming from a Western framework because that is where I live. That is also who I interact with the most online, okay? I don't want you to fix your fingers to be like, well, in Japan, I'm not talking about Japan. If you have something to say specifically about Japanese fandom, I'd love to hear it. But otherwise, I am talking about a Western framework. If you get your little Twitter fingers to sit there and be like, well, in Japan, it's different. And actually, you're wrong because in Japan, blah, 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 I will smite you. Thanks. Anyway, in the mainstream, we have really only seen recently that One Piece has gotten like super popular. The way that it's been popular around the world for like decades finally has hit like Western mainstream. And with this comes an influx of people among the fandom diaspora, as it be. You got your dude bros, your AgendaPiece, your Fujos, your slash fiction, and babes, One Piece really is the people's show. But of course, when something gets super popular, there will always be that nagging crowd, that it's not that deep crowd. Now, a lot of people have said it, and I will say it again, we have it's not that deep our way into fascism in this country. So I, and a lot of people are really tired of that sentiment. All of that shonen talk was a precursor to why I think that One Piece fandom in the West specifically is the way that it is right now. The idea that the show about a young boy with stretchy powers that resembles a fucking monkey can be poignant, emotional, life-changing, and dare I say political is blasphemous to some people. Despite the fact that Luffy changes lives wherever he goes, is a terrorist by the standards set by the world government, has declared war against said government, a show where slavery doesn't just exist but is a core issue in the world so much and runs so deep that it is half the basis of the world government and the nobles, a show where queer people are deeply integrated into the story, a fucking revolutionary army, and a goddamn man-made climate change crisis. Somehow, with all of those things, is not political at all, and is not that deep. So let's finally talk about One Piece. How yes, it is political, and there are some key literary themes that people seem to be willfully ignorant to. One Piece is about a boy named Luffy who wants to sail the seas and become the pirate king. But uh-oh.
Yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum gum.
Thank you for kids dub of One Piece. As a kid, Luffy ate the gum gum fruit. One of the many fruits in this world that will give you magical powers if eaten, but in turn will give you the curse of the sea, meaning you can no longer swim. The sea hates you, baby. You'll sink like a rock, your powers will go kaput. Well, sometimes it's a little flexible in that area. However, despite this, Luffy still wants to sail the seven seas. He still wants to become a pirate. Luffy sails out on his own anyway, determined to get the best crew to go find the One Piece and to become king of the pirates. Seems simple enough. Luffy sails to different places, meets new people, recruits people a part of his crew, and has adventures and fights, and bada boom, bada boop, bam, bam. You got yourself a really good shonen. Truly, what more can you need? However, almost immediately, you are met with themes and plot points that show you that no, things actually aren't that simple. The first chapter starts out with Luffy's childhood, where he is absolutely enamored by the red-haired pirates, led by, of course, red-haired Shanks. And almost immediately, we are met with a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of a pushback on what you probably would innately think of as pirates. Shanks' crew is kind, they're jolly, and they care about freedom and friendship above all else. And we can see how much this has such a profound impact on Luffy in the beginning. There are literally panels in these chapters that just stay on Luffy's face as he's like wide-eyed, like, oh my god. And we know that that is because these people are actively shaping how Luffy sees the world. Of course, Luffy wants to go on adventures with them and constantly begs for him to be tagged along, but he's like 4 and doesn't know how to swim. And of course, after he eats the gum fruit, that makes it even worse, like he'll never learn how to swim. But obviously that doesn't deter Luffy. He even stabs himself before eating the gum fruit to prove that he can do this, all right? He has the strength to do this. All that does is make him have a permanent scar on his face, but you know what? It's the gumption that counts, okay? However, all of this comes into question when a bunch of bandits come into town, and honestly, they see pirates as a joke, and they trash the red-haired pirates, throwing drink on them, like laughing at them, tossing this bar, and Shanks does nothing about it, much to Luffy's dismay. Luffy gets angry at Shanks for this assumed disrespect. Why didn't he fight back? Why did he just allow these people to completely trash the bar and trash him and his crew? Luffy essentially calls Shanks a fraud, and AgendaPiece be damned, Luffy was the first one to ever call Shanks a fraud, okay? And later on, when the bandits come back and Shanks' crew is not there, Luffy picks a fight with them. He tells them that what they said was disrespectful, and, you know, them fighting words. This is a 4-year-old, but hey, them's fighting words. So pause. Right here is what we like to call in the business Oda level foreshadowing. Okay, it's a meme people use to just talk about these sheer amounts of foreshadowing where something you think was completely innocuous. It's not like, oh, very clearly this is something that's going to come up later. We're talking about the littlest, tiniest things that somebody could say a word, a name, a place, a person, and you wouldn't think it means anything. But then like 100, 200, 1,000 chapters later, it's suddenly very fucking important. We can actually see it a lot right now in the current manga. Where they are right now, a lot of things are coming home to roost that were set up like thousands of chapters ago. It's actually kind of insane. One Piece has literally been a part of my life since I was a kid watching the 4Kids dub. I started reading the manga where the run ended, right after the Alabasta arc. The thing is, One Piece is a perfect stew that has been slow cooking these themes for years. I think the argument that it does not have any political themes might stem from a lot of manga and stories in general having similar plot points, but lacking the more nuanced explanation of why things like fascism and authoritarian oppression is such a festering cancer in the world. The first few arcs feel like a pretty standard pirate adventure with an all-loving hero coming to take his friends out on this cool adventure by punching literal clown villains in the face. But even in the early days, Oda was setting things up, introducing his world and how it was, before slowly pulling back the layers to reveal why it was that way and how insanely fucked it actually is. So the townsfolk do come to Luffy's rescue. He's been kidnapped by these bandits after disrespecting them, I guess, and the backlash to the backlash of disrespect there. And it is here in this panel that you can see Luffy finally understand why Shanks did what he did, or rather, why Shanks didn't do what he did. It is because when you are a captain, you aren't just fighting for yourself or even your crew, but everyone who is ever associated with you. Luffy technically put the lives of the village in danger because of this assumed disrespect, something that goes against how kids, especially men, are taught in our society to feel. Men are taught often as kids to not take disrespect lying down. And while you would naturally agree, I think that there's a time and a place for everything. And if you crash out like this, it could lead to a lot more than just yourself getting hurt. This is something Luffy will take with him and will be expanded upon a lot later in the Skypiea arc, one of the most underrated arcs of all time. Very light spoilers for the Skypiea arc, the beginning of it anyway. Bellamy, an antagonistic character, laughs in Luffy's face about the idea of there being a Sky Island, and very similar to these bandits, trashes Luffy, calls him names, throws things at him, to the point where even Nami gets upset, to the point where she's even like, okay, I know I made you guys promise not to do anything or cause any trouble, but honestly, at this point, these guys deserve it. Go ahead and clobber them. And Luffy says no, he decides not to. And to the point where Nami gets mad. She's like, okay, now you don't want to fight? Out of all the times you're ready and raring for a brawl, this is the place where you don't want to fight? And it is supposed to be reminiscent of Luffy learning that lesson when he was a kid. This isn't just assumed disrespect for having your dreams shat on. It's also about your personal ideals and morals, and also the idea that like that kind of like you'll prove them all wrong mentality, or it doesn't matter whether no one believes you, you know it's real and you're gonna still chase after your dreams regardless of who says that they're not real. And also this idea that you're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for everyone who has ever associated with you or who you call a friend. And, you know, getting into a fight over something as stupid as like whether or not you believe me is not something Luffy wants to do in this moment. And you can see how much he's grown since that very first chapter. And of course, this gets pushed even deeper when Luffy gets kicked out of the bar and he gets met with Blackbeard. Now, this is his second interaction within the last couple of chapters with Blackbeard. And Blackbeard also laughs, but not in a way to mock Luffy, to actually be like, no, he understands. He gets it. Who cares what these people think of your dream? We're going to reach it, right? But Luffy's already stated that he doesn't like Blackbeard. Kind of a spoiler, not really a spoiler. He's one of the main antagonists of the entire show. And this meeting with Blackbeard is to basically say that both of them are reaching for the exact same thing, but have completely different ideals. And it is those ideals that will be pitted up against each other in the very end. He will have to go up against Blackbeard in order to prove which ideal is the best for getting the One Piece. They both are going towards the One Piece, but while Luffy has a more freedom for all and liberation for all mentality about like, that's how I will get free. I will get free. I will get to the One Piece by being the most free. That's basically his plan, right? Blackbeard's plan instead is that I will get to the One Piece by conquering over everything. I will get to the One Piece by taking in more than one way, which I'm not going to talk about. That will be actually spoilers. And I think that is so interesting. That's something that was instilled in Luffy since he was a kid, because he could have easily gone down this like path, because at the end of the day, they are pirates and they do sometimes take, you know, he's easily could have gone down this path of like taking. And instead, what Shanks instilled in him is this idea that being a pirate is about being the most free. To Luffy, that's what being a pirate is. And he will do everything in his power to make sure that the world knows that his friends know that, everybody knows that. Whereas Blackbeard is the exact opposite. Again, not getting into spoilers about him or his backstory or anything like that, but he's the exact opposite. But they are both striving for the same thing. So while in this moment, Blackbeard is agreeing with Luffy, like, hey, fuck those guys, they don't understand, Luffy still is like, absolutely not with this guy, because he knows that his ideals are so fundamentally different that they just fundamentally dislike each other, right? It's so good. But all of this was set up in chapter 1. So let's go back to chapter 1, shall we? So Shanks comes to save the day, and with the rest of his crew. And honestly, they're ready to throw down. They are indeed ready to throw down. Because you know what? You can spit in my face, throw drink on me, all this type of stuff. But the second you mess with my friends, that's the moment you die. And in fact, the bandits laugh at this. They don't understand. They're just like, haha, man, the power of friendship, dude, what? And then immediately one of them gets shot. Because at the end of the day, they are pirates. Exactly. And Luffy, again, you can see there's a close-up shot of Luffy's face in this panel where you see his mind, his gears like changing and his life being rearranged right in front of his eyes. And that's where you can see where Luffy's ideals of freedom really truly come from. However, Luffy gets kidnapped again. He cannot catch a break. The leader of the bandits kidnaps Luffy, brings him out to sea, and promptly kicks him overboard. I guess he just needed a way to escape the city, but like, damn. He just kicks him overboard, and of course, Luffy can no longer swim. Well, he couldn't swim in the first place, but now he really can't swim, and is left to drown. A giant sea king comes in and eats the bandit, but Luffy is still drowning. Shanks comes to save him. The sea king is about to eat the both of them when Shanks pulls out this move, which I don't have time to explain. But in the process, he loses his arm. Luffy is distraught and vows to become a great pirate, better than even Shanks, honestly. And Shanks, you know what, gives him his hat and is like, I'll look forward to it. This hat is a promise. Give it back to me when you have reached that peak. And, you know, this may be my third or fourth time reading the first chapter of One Piece. And did I cry when he gave him that hat? Maybe it's because I just know how far everything has come that I just like, I did break down crying. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It's so crazy. One Piece is so long, but like if you reread it, like if you're like caught up on One Piece right now, I highly urge you to like go back and reread like the first couple of chapters. The amount of emotion you will feel is like crazy. Mostly because in this moment, Shanks knows that Luffy is going to be one of the greats. He's like him and is like, I don't think that's his co-captain. I forgot who that man is. But him and one of his subordinates are just like, yeah, that kid's going to go do great things. Like, he may be the one to catch the One Piece, which is an entirely different situation. How Shanks knew that he was not going to be the one to find the One Piece. And I wonder if that will ever be explained, because like very obviously, you know, meta wise, we know that Luffy's going to be the one to find the One Piece. It'd be crazy if he wasn't. But we know that Luffy's going to be the one to find the One Piece, right? He's going to be the one to become king of the pirates, but Shanks is giving it his valiant effort out there, which makes me wonder if he knows Luffy is eventually going to come around and find the One Piece. What the fuck is Shanks doing? You know what I mean? That's not even a spoiler. That's a genuine question. Like, what is he doing? I wonder if that'll ever be explained, because we're slowly getting to the point where I think they're about to like talk about Shanks's backstory and stuff like that. Well, they already kind of have, but like not from Shanks's point of view, which I think is really interesting that we're getting Shanks's backstory from everybody but Shanks. I find that very interesting. But anyway, that's getting into more spoiler territory of what's going on in the manga right now. But like, anyway, I find that so interesting, and maybe that's a whole different video where we talk about like the worst generation and the generational like divides in One Piece. Anyway, there's this rhetoric that goes around some circles on the internet that says One Piece gets good after episode 100, or at Arlong Park is where the real show starts, or One Piece doesn't have anything to say until Arlong Park. And I obviously would disagree. Look at how much we just got out of the first chapter. Like I said before, you just have to look a little bit deeper. Not even that deep. We're like 1 inch deep into this like first chapter, and we're already uncovering themes that will come about for the rest of the show. And of course, just from a storytelling standpoint, the amount of setup and world building and narration and all of this that gets set up right in this first chapter is something that shouldn't be overlooked. This isn't something that you get at the 100th episode or at Arlong Park. You get it in the very first chapter. Of course, this is also where the political undertones start.
Oh, Tenna. Oh, Spamton. Oh, Naruto. Oh, Sasuke. I'll never leave you again. Ah. Oh man, is there anybody for me? Possibly? Oh, don't worry man, turn that frown upside down. Oh my god, Sonic the Werehog from the hit 2008 game Sonic Unleashed? Is that you? Yeah man, don't worry, there's plenty of fish in the sea. I'm sure there will be somebody for you. Oh man, thank you Sonic. I mean, you would want to? No, I'm a lone wolf. Or, should I say, a lone hedgehog. Wow.
So, I just want to let you know, stickers are up in my store. This is the last restock of the year. Just ignore it that happened. But if you wanna get in on the action, my stickers are restocked for one last time for the end of the year. They will not be restocked until the new year, and even then, I don't know when the next time they'll be restocked, honest to God. So come get your stickers now. There's also a winter sale going on. Yeah, that's right, we're talking Black Friday, baby. There is a 20% off coupon you can use right now in the store. We call that Holiday Yapper. Yes. And if you join my Patreon right now, you get early access to videos, early access to forums, access to the Discord, and an extra 5% off on top of that 20% off in the store. Yes, sir. Also, Patreon is also on sale, half off for the rest of the year. So if you wanted to join the Discord or get early access to forums or access to my vlogs a month early, it's all on sale right now for half off till the end of the year. Thank you so much for selling out these stickers in the past, and I have a new sticker up from my Sonic Unleashed video that you can get right now. So if any of that sounds cool to you, go ahead down in the description, find my store, find my Patreon, everything like that, and have a happy and safe holidays. Bye. Right after this, we skip forward a couple of years, I think 10 years. Luffy is now like 14, and he finally sets out to sea. He isn't very great at it. He loses his boat almost immediately and gets stuck in a barrel, which ends up on a pirate ship, where we meet Kobe. And Kobe is this kid who got taken by these pirates and is forced into indentured servitude to just live out his life being like a cabin boy. That's the word for this crew. And obviously he hates it because they treat him like shit, obviously. And he vows to become a Marine. Well, he wants to become a Marine so he can fight against pirate, because of course all pirates are bad. But we know Luffy. We know Luffy is a pirate. We know Shanks is a pirate. And we know that all pirates are not bad. It's almost like things aren't just black and white. Anyway, Koby meets Luffy. After some encounters about Koby's gumption and his determination, they become friends. And therefore, Luffy decides to beat Alvida for Koby. Alvida is the one oppressing Koby. Luffy doesn't really give a shit about this until Koby finds his like gumption, right? Like Luffy has this whole thing where he tells Koby, I don't like you because you're annoying, and I hate people who, you know, are crybabies and like don't do anything about their circumstances, or at least don't try to do anything about their circumstances. And the second that Koby, you know, like gets that gumption and gets that determination, like, no, I am gonna do this, Luffy immediately helps him out, which is obviously the start of a pattern that we will see. He beats up Alvida, said bad pirate, of course, and they end up on this island where, of course, they meet Zoro, but they also, this is where Koby's worldview gets shattered as he sees the Marines, who are led by Captain Axehand Morgan in this area, and his Nepo baby ass son, Helmeppo. It's so funny, like Helmeppo, Nepo, like, you see how it works there, you see how it works there. Anyway, they are like running tyranny on this town, and it breaks Koby's worldview because, well, the Marines aren't supposed to do that. The Marines are supposed to protect and serve. But I am sure this is all just one bad apple and not the symptom of a larger systemic problem. I'll let you answer that one. I think a lot of people in the OP fandom don't really care about the themes or undertones Oda includes in the different arcs. They tend to focus more on power scaling and other shonen aspects. So when someone tries to read deeper into the story or analyze it through a particular lens, for example, the discussions about Garp and his role in the Marines, they're often told that they're reading too much into it, or that it's just a manga/anime, no need to bring other stuff into it. At least that's something I've experienced. In general, I think that the whole media literacy discourse comes down to people who genuinely want to explore the story more deeply because they find that appealing, and a loud and hopefully small part of the fandom who don't want their fave to be criticized or don't want to acknowledge that the story that they enjoy and believe has no deeper message is clearly political, like all art is, let's be honest. On a more serious note, I would like to remind you that I started watching One Piece during 2020, and that I live in America, and that I am Black. I don't know if you could fucking tell. Police brutality was on the front lines of a lot of people's minds during that time. And right when everything was like really popping off during the summer, I had just gotten to the arc of Water 7. So believe me when I tell you that this show had a hand in shaping my beliefs as a person during that time. Spoilers for Water 7 and also Wano later on, very specifically. Water 7 is such a double whammy of an arc. I saw a Gary Come Home edit of Usopp and Luffy, and I may have cried. What of it? Gary Come Home is a banger of a song. It's also really sad, and put that with Usopp and Luffy. Oh my god. But also we had Robin leave the crew. And this is also what I mean when I say that Ringlong Land is one of the most important arcs in One Piece, but nobody wants to take me seriously because they think it was just a fucking filler arc. There's a reason why that arc wasn't just a fucking filler arc that you could just skip. Another video for another day. Ooh. So already dealing with the stress of my family being torn apart, the government decides to do what the government does best and make everybody's lives worse. The government in One Piece at every turn tells you directly how brutal and inhumane the Marines are. Robin has been treated as a terrorist since she was a child because of literature, something we will get back to later. And she genuinely believes that she would be better off dead because of it. Her life up until joining the Straw Hats has been a very slow suicide because the government thought that this little girl was unfit for life. Also, by the way, this isn't the first nor the last time the government would do something like this. See Ace. So towards the end of the arc, when the Straw Hats make it their mission to get Robin back at any cost, there are some very beautiful and poignant quotes that come out of this arc.
Those government bastards may tell you that your existence is a crime, but no matter how dangerous you may be, just being alive, just being who you are, is never wrong. There's no right or wrong in who you are.
The context of Frankie saying this about a government that has told her that she has no right to exist based off of her lineage for nothing more than political gain means something to me. Surely this has no bearing on our real life government and governmental policies. Surely not. I'm sorry. When the cops are gunning down my people and dragging people out of their homes based off of the way that they look, Frankie saying that it's not a crime to exist is going to do something to me. And Robin realizing, despite it all, that she has friends who are willing to wage war against the government for her because yes, she does deserve to exist, is going to do something to me. I think people will try to say that the scene of Luffy shooting down the governmental flag is not political, even though he literally shoots down a government flag, but they try to say it's not political because Luffy, well, he only did this for her friend. He wouldn't be doing this otherwise. And to that I say, you're absolutely right. That doesn't make it any less political. A lot of people don't start doing anything political leaning, so to speak, until they find how this stuff directly impacts them or the people around them. That happens all the fucking time. There are plenty of people out there who don't care about LGBT issues until they themselves come to terms with their own sexuality, or they have somebody in their direct life who is trans, who is gay, or whatever. It happens all the fucking time. Does it suck? Yes. I wish you would just like have empathy for people without having to directly know somebody in your life. But hey, if that's what it takes for you to be on board, so be it. But outside of the fact that Luffy fucking declared war on the government by shooting down the flag, Luffy is not dumb. A lot of people will say that Luffy is dumb. Luffy is not dumb. He's not like book smart, but he has a lot of emotional intelligence. He absolutely knew what it meant to burn down that flag. That's why nobody else in the crew said anything to him when he did it. Everybody stood there because they all understood what that meant. If the enemy of Robin is the government, then the government is my enemy. And that's as simple as that. And he understands what that means. He understands the ramifications of having the entire world government going against you. And that is why no one in the Straw Hats goes to stop him. Nobody's like, Luffy, do you think this is a good idea? Like, they know that he knows. And they know, and they did it fucking anyway. And so yeah, that is a political fucking statement, babes. Sorry. Like, no, Luffy isn't gonna sit here and say, down with the government, down with the He's not gonna sit there and say that. Obviously not. That's what the revolutionaries are for. That doesn't mean that the things he's doing isn't political at all. But I'm sorry, burning down a governmental flag is always going to be fucking political. Hello? No matter what reason you do it, you can do it because you just didn't like the way the flag looks. That'll still be a political reason. Hello? He may not be coming out the gate singing Black Lives Matters, but he will not take myself seriously. Luffy may not come out the gate saying Black Lives Matter, but he will go against anybody who chooses to oppress other people, especially his friends. And it just so happens that 9 times out of 10, it's usually the government. The other 1 time is usually pirates. And even those pirates like Kaido, Big Mom, and Doflamingo are working with the government in some way, shape, or form. Spoilers for Wano, but Luffy's Gear 5th form is quite literally in the shape and form of a descendant of a god. A god who people who are slaves use as this mythical figure that liberates slaves. The song that plays against Luffy when he turns into his Gear 5th form is called the Drums of Liberation. What are we talking about here? Light spoilers about some of the villains in One Piece. It absolutely baffles me that people can go watch up to arcs like Enies Lobbies, Marineford, and Fishman Island and only come away with funny guy go boom. Even the East Blue tackled police corruption, child slavery, and planted the seed for violent racial supremacy. Although, seeing as Luffy is likely illiterate, I shouldn't expect more from the audience who blindly idolize him. Luffy fights anyone who is corrupt and treating their people wrong. Sure, Wapple was the rightful king of Drum Island, but he privatized healthcare and wouldn't let doctors treat people the way they needed it. Doflamingo staged a horrific event to forcefully take power while gaining public approval. Just because the text doesn't specifically say this chapter is about the purposeful destruction of history by the world government so no one knows how they took power, it's still clear that there are highly politicized topics present in most arcs. The only thing Luffy really cares about politically is freedom for everyone, which goes against just about everyone he fights. It's disappointing that such a long-standing and globally impactful work is so consistently misinterpreted. I applaud the protesters in Nepal, France, Madagascar, and others for seeing their own situations in One Piece and helping each other rise up and work for a better life. Spoilers for Egghead. On top of all of this, during Water 7, it is stated that the city constantly has to build higher and higher and higher because the sea levels are rising. And it is not until way later in Egghead Island that we find out that the sea levels rising is most likely a man-made issue. We have man-made climate change going on in One Piece. Environmental messaging is always going to be political, especially when there are people in the government actively denying that climate change is happening. Like, people wouldn't call Pokemon political, but it does make a lot of political stances about things like climate change because of its inherently pro-environment and taking care of the world around you messaging. And people will try to use the excuse of, well, just because you can relate to it doesn't mean that this was inherently what the author was intending. And honestly, sometimes that is true. However, these tropes exist for a reason. Oda didn't just pull this shit out of his ass. Everything you make exists in the context of your own life and the things that you have been through. Insert, you did not just fall out of a coconut tree meme. Oda didn't have to reference police corruption in America because unfortunately, police corruption happens everywhere, including Japan. Japan has its own very, very, very colorful history with all of the themes that are going on within One Piece. So no, Oda didn't have to reference America, and just because I'm coming at it from an American lens doesn't mean that this shit isn't happening all around the world. See every single country that has used Luffy's Jolly Roger in protest. They're not just doing that for shits and giggles, they're not just doing it for the lulz, because they took what Luffy stands for and want it for themselves. Freedom. So to claim that Oda wasn't inspired by the world around him is doing such a disservice to not just him as a person, but him as a literary writer. Shakespeare wrote his plays directly commenting on the monarchy at the time and the politics of the time. H.P. Lovecraft wrote his stories based off of his own very, very racist fears that he was going through in his life. So why all of a sudden does Oda's writing have no reference in reality? Well, like I said before, it's a shonen. It's technically made for a kid's demographic, and it's about a kid who is made out of rubber and likes to punch things. And of course, some people believe that you cannot talk about serious topics when the piece of media is made for children. I really hope you understand now how stupid you sound. You can't go around calling One Piece one of the greatest pieces of media of all time, which it is, and simultaneously ignore everything that makes it great. If you want a deeper dive on why other cultures are using Luffy's Jolly Rogers in protest, I would highly suggest you check out Mother's Basement and his video on like basically the politics of One Piece. Think Peace Tribe has a very good video about political literacy and One Piece, specifically talking about Garp as it relates to politicians and the police and yada yada yada. Garp oppressed D-slaves. I'm sorry. I had to say it. It's so funny. It's a joke. Not really, but if you're looking for really good introspective videos about the themes and literary devices in One Piece, I highly suggest you check out Melon T's videos. Very, very good. Doesn't necessarily touch on real world politics, but still talks about why One Piece is so deep and the different themes in it. And of course, last but certainly not least, I gotta shout out my mutual Awkward Choco, who for years has been talking about the politics within One Piece. She even has a series going arc by arc, talking about the different politics in each of these arcs. Please go check out her channel. I will leave all of them down in the description below. And I even reached out to her to see if she had any opinions about this type of stuff. And here's what she said about this whole recent rise of One Piece's and political discourse. It's a little frustrating to be an outsider in a conversation I've tried to spark for 2 years at this point, but it's ultimately a good thing. I think this realization is coming at a time when people are being radicalized by the Trump administration. They're seeing what an authoritarian government looks like in real time, and this is obviously something Luffy conquers throughout the manga. People are looking to One Piece for hope and inspiration. That's why you're seeing it pop up in protests globally like Nepal, Paris, and even America. I think this all contributes to people's literacy of One Piece. I think it was easy for people in the US to gloss over the politics and treat it as something fun because they've never had to encounter what Luffy is up against until now, even though there are many lessons that have been relevant to the US for a while. You can also just go on YouTube and look up One Piece's political and just scroll. There are so many videos that people are making about this topic because it's come up, and we'll talk about how and why it's come up later. But if you just want some more to chew on, something that's a lot more in-depth about very particular politics, all you got to do is scroll, bams. Whether or not you put overt political messaging in your work, politics will always be a part of the art you consume and make. Where you grew up, how you grew up, the types of things you like to watch, the type of music you like to listen to, the things you like to wear are all politicized in one way or another. And of course, that always has influence in the type of art that you make. Also, the idea of anything being anti-political is a political statement in of itself. Countercultures were built to go against the popular political trends of the time. And of course, here's a great video about all of that by Colleen's Manga Rex. Okay, so that got a little heavy, and I want to end this video off on a very lighthearted note, as One Piece is. We can talk about the heavy stuff and, you know, the lighthearted stuff all at the same time. So let's talk about some not so serious things as it relates to media literacy. And I'm of course talking about Booktok and AgendaPiece. Now, the definition of media literacy isn't just whether or not you can tell something is political or not, but rather the ability to critically analyze stories presented in the mass media to determine their accuracy and credibility, aka being able to look deeper than the surface level. This is not just for talking about like real world issues as you can relate them to the things that you're watching, but simply understanding the text itself and what the author was trying to convey. The lore of One Piece runs so deep, a lot like FNAF, where people have made their entire careers online talking about this show. Theories, character analysis, and of course, agendas. I'm very much in the camp that it's likely a loud minority of power scaling bros that are the centerpiece of this discourse. Like all shonen, One Piece is going to have fans that will just be there for action and fights, which is great and good for those people who are able to find enjoyment out of things like that. But when it comes to a series like One Piece, where the fights action-wise weren't too intricately choreographed, actively engaging and low on the scale and spectacle compared to the average shonen, the anime Wano arc onward definitely tries to remedy this with its high-budget Sakuga in the fight scenes, but that's 900 episodes into the series. But those people still find the fights compelling, and that's why, because whether they realize it or not, the fights are well written and it clashes with the ideals that push the themes of oppression and freedom that the series is all about. So when you have a person that likes fights in anime and manga, they experience One Piece, which has fights that make them feel things, but all they have in their vocabulary is power scaling and agenda posting, and the only way they know how to communicate their appreciation for the series fundamentally opposes what the series is going for. Okay, I can't like not talk about AgendaPiece. It is simultaneously the funniest and most annoying thing to come out of the One Piece fandom. Essentially, the idea of an agenda comes from politics, funnily enough, and it's a term used to direct a person to a specific cause. If you've ever heard the left's agenda is to make everybody transgender, it's like stuff like that. So in One Piece terms, it kind of just boils down to this idea that your favorite character needs to be on top at all costs, and you're going to use the text, even inaccurately at sometimes, to make sure that your character ends up on top.
Bro, this pretty much sums up AgendaPiece. This is the spirit of AgendaPiece. This is what it's all about. Circling as the strongest swordsman. He said using the manga as a source. You thought the manga was a source material, buddy?
Fuck no.
You thought you could use statements from the manga?
Get the fuck out of here.
Like, what's next? You're gonna say that Oda said something? Get the fuck out of here. Motherfucker's using the actual manga to scale a character. What's next? We're gonna use feats?
Now, this starts off harmless enough. This is a subsect of the power scaling community, where people decide which characters end up on top based off of very large leaps in logic. For example, I'm just gonna take 3 random characters. We have Shanks, Mihawk, and Sanji. And if, for example, just out of the fucking blue, if Mihawk can beat Shanks and Sanji can beat Mihawk, then very clearly Sanji can beat Shanks. Does this have any basis in reality? No, but this is the type of logic we're working with here. AgendaPiece takes this in step even further, going on to say that Sanji is probably low-key a god because Shanks maybe has godlike powers. And again, if Sanji can beat Shanks, then clearly Sanji is a god. Again, does any of this make sense? No. Does Shanks even have godlike powers? Nobody knows. But they're just making shit up so that their goat can end up on top. But of course, like always, it's the internet, and the internet can take things way too far. Going into people's comment sections who are just trying to enjoy the show, make theories or what have you, and going in and being like, none of this is true, all of this is false, yada yada yada. I'm sure you've seen that tweet going around where like you really take Oda as your canon source. You mean the creator of the show? And that's where it becomes annoying, and as a lot of people have said, scare the hoes away, because you're in people's comment sections being annoyed with them when they're talking about something not even power scaling related, and you're in there being like, Law faked his backstory so people would feel sympathy for him. What? And also the idea that people are actively spoiling the show for new people that got into it. You're trying to be funny, but what you're doing is literally spoiling the show for people. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, you're using spoilers to try and get this agenda across when people are still in like the East Blue Saga. Like, let's calm down, okay?
I need y'all to understand something. There's a fine line between AgendaPiece and yaoi. This is the line, and the AgendaPiece community is very close to crossing it. That's all I'm saying. AgendaPiece is very close to shipping, okay? That's all I'm saying. It's getting real close. I'm getting concerned. Y'all are gonna cross into the yaoi community. No shade, but they have fun over there. It looks like y'all want to join. This is not only slander to Sanji. This is just pure grade yaoi. Don't ask me how I know. Don't ask me how I know. I'm a fan of all things. I know a couple things. Y'all are crossing the line. Close to it. Y'all are close to it. You're right there. And when y'all finally cross that line, just know, I knew. I see you.
Now, I mentioned AgendaPiece and all of this because there is a level of looking deeper into the text that you have to do, even if you're doing it incorrectly, that you have to do in order to come up with these agendas in the first place. Like, to say that Law faked his backstory so people would feel bad for him, you fundamentally understand that Law's backstory is sad and means a lot to, like, the overall, I guess, like, scale of, like, One Piece sad backstories, right? You have to understand that in some way, shape, or form. So there is a little bit of media literacy going on there, but, like, the fact that people kind of twist it and turn it to make it their own stuff, I think kind of negates all of that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is something also very fun, which is the book talk girlies getting into One Piece. And if you're wondering how the fuck did that happen, I have a rabbit hole series of domino events to give to you, so strap the fuck in. So we have to start way back, I think like a couple of months ago, when the Anime Men, a group of like teenagers, though young adult men, boys, who make videos about anime on the internet. Now, their videos are pretty generic, like popular anime videos. They make skits and stuff like that. However, they've tried to dip their toe into like long form content on YouTube. I don't know if this is the first time they've dipped their toe into long form content, but it did not go very well. So they put out a video about ranking the highest rated anime of every year since like anime came out or something like that. And the video's not good, like just straight up, it's not a good video. Like just from like a YouTube like producing standpoint, it's not a good video. Like I think if they would have done this like book club style where there's so many of them in the group, like you could give each of them like one or two anime to go watch and then come back book club style and talk about that type of stuff. But the fact it was a tier list was already like rage bait, like material type stuff. Nobody even knows if the video was actually rage bait or not. We have no clue. The point is the video was not well received. It was not well received. And a lot of certain types of anime fans decided to get up on the internet and talk about how these people are tourists and they need to be deplatformed and yada, yada, yada. I don't think it was that serious. Pause. Okay, so I ended up saying like, oh, I don't think it's that serious. But as we will see later and as we see before, I don't really like using that verbiage on this type of stuff, though I do feel like in this situation specifically, when I say it's not that serious, I mean more in the sense that like I think deplatforming was a little bit of like an overreaction to this. I think that's probably the better word, an overreaction, and less that it isn't that serious, because as we will see later, it does get that serious. Which is funny because we're going to talk about what is actually that serious in a second. But them making this type of video that was just very ill-informed, should they have made that video? Probably not, or just do a little bit more research, absolutely. But I don't think it's to the point where we need to call for the deplatforming, right? So this happened. If you want like a better, like full deep dive into the whole anime tourist thing, I highly suggest Adi Harajuku's video. I know I'm giving you a lot of homework here, but like if you're not really into anime spaces like that, you're probably not understanding what's going on. So Adi Harajuku goes very much so in depth about like the whole anime tourist thing and how that's low-key becoming a dog whistle nowadays, but that's another conversation. Go watch that video. Anyway, so that happens. And then the anime man, Joey, who is like an OG like anime YouTuber, he's been here like since forever, making anime YouTube videos, comes out and makes a video reacting to it. Like, everybody was reacting to it. It's not like he was the only one. There were a lot of people reacting to this video, kind of cashing in on the fact that you could kind of dunk on this and like immediately get like tens of thousands of views. And so he obviously did it as well. Though he said something that wasn't even his original thought, which is why I'm like, y'all gotta be careful with the shit y'all be like looking at and reading out from like Twitter. So he finds a tweet and he says he agrees with it, of the fact that somebody said that these anime tourists are a lot like the Christopher Columbus of anime. And so people, you know, gave him backlash for that and were kind of just like, hey, so like maybe don't compare like the general public getting into anime and popular anime and just the average general like person who likes to watch stuff. Maybe you shouldn't compare them to somebody who like did a genocide of a people, multiple peoples, multiple cultures. You probably shouldn't do that, right?
I want to make it very clear as well that I'm not saying that the anime man Joey is like some racist human being or something like that. No, what I am saying, and Annie Harajuku said this in her video as well, is that people do not take Native American issues and specifically like Native American genocide seriously. Ever since, you know, you were taught in class about Christopher Columbus and then later you probably found out like the reality of the situation, it's always in the public lexicon been kind of seen as, oh, Christopher Columbus, white people be like, and then it's just kind of like, you know, oh, you were taught this in school, but actually it's this, and it's like played off as a joke. Whereas like that's kind of where education about Native American issues kind of start and stop. Whereas the Native American people have been going through horrific things for literally up until now, like quite literally up until today. It's still going on today. And so what I'm saying is like very clearly he would not make the same joke about chattel slavery. He wouldn't make the same joke about World War II, you know, stuff like that. But you say this about Christopher Columbus because you think that the joke is at Christopher Columbus's expense, but in reality it's at the expense of all the Native American people who died in the cultures that were wiped out for the sake of America.
And so there was the backlash to that, and he decided to make a response to that, being like, hey, so it's not that deep. And you know what I think about that phrase? Even when I said it just now, I had to walk it back because I'm like, nope, I can't say it's not that deep. We got to explain ourselves here. So he said it's not that deep. It's just Japanese cartoons, which is an insane thing to say, especially as a person who has made their entire career, so much so that he now lives in Japan off of anime. You're going to say that it's not that deep. You're going to say that it's just Japanese cartoon and that it's not that deep. Needless to say, there was backlash to the backlash. He absolutely got his ass handed to him by pretty much every single person online being like, no, it is that fucking deep. It really is. It's always going to be that deep. Art, especially in any type of medium, will always be that deep. Sorry. And so that decided this whole like discourse, because again, like I said, we're just in a time right now where you can't say shit like that and expect people not to get upset with that, because like I said, we have it's not that deep our way into fucking fascism, so people don't like that. People don't like when you say that. So people were, you know, digging through his past and finding shit and yada yada yada, and they found he runs a podcast with two other people called Trash Taste, and in said podcast they had Hassan on, the political streamer. Like, I don't know, because like I was like, oh well, they had him on because they're friends, but especially after everything that happened, I don't know if they're actually friends. So it's like, why would you have a political streamer on your podcast twice if you don't want to talk about politics? I'm not gonna get into it. That's a whole nother conversation. Whatever. Anyway, so they had Hassan on, notorious political streamer, right? And in that podcast, he talks about the fact that he believes that One Piece is political, and all three of the co-hosts laugh in his face. They laugh hysterically. It was the funniest thing they heard all day. They laugh so fucking loud. And that's all he said. He said that I think that One Piece is political. And they fucking laugh. They laugh so loud. And they do try to have like a little bit of a conversation of like why he thinks it's political and yada yada yada. But they really aren't engaging with it that much. One of them even goes on to say that like, yeah, the stretchy monkey boy that stretches and punches thing is political. And it's like, and they say it more in a way in which less of like they don't believe that it's political, and more that they just don't want to engage with the text on a deeper level. And that's a whole nother conversation about that we've kind of touched on already. But the point is that happened, right? So people saw that clip and they were like, oh, this also doesn't look very good, which started the entire like One Piece TikTok community and beyond, as we've now seen, talk about why One Piece actually is political, which is why this whole discourse has like started up again, because it's been going on forever. But specifically in this last year, this discourse has like started up fresh anew because of this whole situation. So people started talking about One Piece being political again, yada, yada, yada. That's why I'm here making this video, yada, yada, yada. And then at the same time all of this was happening, because I am also on the Booktok side of the internet, because I love book talks. I love books. I read occasionally. I'm trying to read a book a month. I'm severely behind. I have 2 months and I have like 4 books left to read. I need to get back on it. But anyway, so I'm also on Booktok, and I know a lot about what's going on in the Booktok world. And of course, after certain things that have happened this year, specifically in America, with certain people who are no longer on this earth, people have come out to say certain things about certain things. I'm trying to be as vague as possible here, but if you live in America, you probably know what the fuck I'm talking about. And so after all of that and the election of this year and yada yada, well, last year that led into this year, whatever, yada yada yada, some authors decided they wanted to show their ass and show who they really are as people. And so a lot of people, especially people of color, were like, well, I'm going to choose not to support you as an author, as is your right. And there were some certain subsect of Booktok girlies that were like, why are we getting on people and not supporting them because of their political views? Guys, books aren't political. I would say pick up a fucking book, but it's clear you probably can't read. Oh my God. And this is what people have in the Booktok space have been talking for years and years and years about, how there are certain Booktok influencers who just want to have the influence of being an influencer. Like, they just want to be an influencer. They don't actually care about reading. They want to come off as if they care about reading, but they actually do not care about reading. Because what the fuck is that statement? Books aren't political. Books are not. Babe, you do realize there was a time where you weren't allowed legally to be able to read, right? There was a time where someone who looks like me was not allowed to read legally. Was not allowed to read. Are we serious? Certain books during World War II were burned because they did not want people to read them, because then they would be educated. Like, that statement was so, it showed a lot of people's asses that day. So a lot of people online in the Booktok space were already pretty privy to this entire idea that, like, pieces of media and art not being political is a very stupid fucking statement to make, right? So when Booktok got a swing and a hear of what was going on with One Piece not being political, and many people were making videos about why One Piece is political on TikTok, Booktok decided to enter themselves into the ring. Now, there were a couple of people who just were like, yeah, my friend was into it, or my brother was into it, and yada yada, I got into it. But there were a lot of people who started reading One Piece on the Booktok side of the internet because of people saying it's not political, and the entire backlash. So you see how the two kind of had this perfect storm of like joining together. And now we are here. So that is the like domino chain effect of things that have happened that have led a lot of Booktok girlies into getting into One Piece. And let me tell you, it is so fucking refreshing. Oh my God. It's a running joke in the fandom now that the Booktok girlies are finally bringing literacy to One Piece. And they're not wrong. I honestly think the reason why it feels so refreshing is because, just simply put, they don't have the shackles of knowing what anime is. They don't have the shackles of genre holding them down. They're just reading this just to read this. They don't have any expectations based off of it being a shonen, based off of it being a manga, based off of it being like technically for kids or like whatever. They're just reading it as it is. And because of that, we're getting fresh, not even new takes, just fresh, like talking about this stuff that like hasn't been allowed, quote unquote, in this fandom for like so long. Obviously, Booktok girlies are used to looking past like certain things and looking into depths and the world building and this, that, the other thing. Brandon Sanderson has taken over the world this year. You know what I mean? So like they're used to like really looking deep into this type of stuff. And some people hate that to the point where they're calling out people and believing that they're cheating because some people are accurately, so painfully accurately, like foreshadowing things that are going to happen in the book. People are like, oh, you must be cheating. You must have saw a spoiler. You must have looked ahead, yada, yada, yada. Oda. One thing I'm incredibly grateful for, though, is the recent interest Booktok has had in One Piece. The community is coming in with no set expectations, no previous shonen influence, and are actively looking for themes to enjoy, and One Piece being literally that, to the point where the One Piece might as well be the themes we read along the way. The new community has brought a lot more healthy discussion about the series, which is such a breath of fresh air as someone who's been a fan since I was young, teenage girl who had a crush on Ace. On the other side of things, it has only increased the media literacy discourse because of the very vocal minorities pushing AgendaPiece and are incredibly adamant against any analytical discussion on the series where they are trying to gatekeep these new people instead of embracing them for enjoying something they also do. So like, yeah, they could be cheating, or Oda has just put so much stuff into place, and when you tell somebody, hey, this is a story that is very long and has a lot of different, like, you know, components to it and world building to it, you don't think that some of these girlies might look at this and go, okay, I'm going to pay attention to every single little thing? We talk about Oda level foreshadowing at the beginning of this video. Oda put that shit in the beginning on purpose. So just because a lot of people know to look for it now does not mean that they are somehow cheating. It's insane the lengths men will go to discredit a woman, but whatever. Like, for example, when I start reading the Mistborn series, you bet your ass I'm gonna be paying attention to every single little fucking detail because it's a long story that connects to a larger world, and I know that now. When I first started reading One Piece, I didn't know that. And so, yeah, there were a lot of things that I glossed over, like the whole rising sea levels. I didn't even think for a second about the rising fucking sea levels in this world, possibly, you know, again, I'm not in a spoiler section, so I'll refrain from spoiling, but I didn't even think about that shit. I didn't, because it didn't occur to me because of the world building and stuff like that. I just didn't think about that. But if you tell somebody, hey, look out for world building, look out for like people's names and theories and themes and all this type of stuff, they might recognize that shit a lot sooner.
I'm thinking another wild thought. I know my theories are always crazy and out of pocket, but listen and hear me out. Maybe, just maybe humans treated the fishermen really horribly. Maybe they enslaved them or something, or used them for labor so much that the fishermen are like, we've had enough of this shit. We're stronger than you. How dare you use us? Now you're gonna be our slaves type of situation. Or they could just be pure evil. Luffy is stretchy and rubbery, right? How the hell is he so strong? Okay, you ate the gum fruit, and now you're rubbery. You're not, like, why is he strong? I don't understand. Why is he so hard to hurt and injure? Like, did he eat the gum fruit? Because there's different kinds of level, like, fruits, right? Devil fruits. Could he have possibly eaten a different fruit? And he, like, mistook it? Because he was so young when he ate it. So, I'm just like, you know, again, with the crazy wild theories. I know, I'm sorry.
All in all, it is very fun to watch other people get into One Piece for the first time. Like, this is the closest we are going to get to being able to scrub our brains and watch it again for the first time. It is so much fun. Earlier in the year, people were starting to watch One Piece. There was like a group of like TikTokers who just decided they wanted to start watching One Piece, and they got famous like online for like watching One Piece for the first time. And it was really fun watching other people's reactions and seeing them cry and seeing them get angry and all this other type of stuff. It is so fun and it is so refreshing. And so having the Book Talk girlies do it, some of these people are already at like Water 7 Annie's lobby. They're about to hit the Summer War. Like, that's crazy to me. They're about to hit that type of shit, bro. That's crazy to me. They are speeding through this shit. But that's Book Talk for you. They be reading 100. They got 100 book like a year challenges. 100 books? Girl, I'm barely getting to 12. And then also shout out to the spicy Book Talk girlies who saw Smoker and immediately understood the assignment. I salute you. One Piece is the GOAT, and it's time y'all start acting like it. As I stated earlier, saying that One Piece isn't that deep or has no political themes, it does such a fucking disservice to the author and everybody else who puts One Piece together for us to enjoy. I'm sorry, you don't become one of the best-selling pieces of media ever, period, by not having any deeper themes on any level. And hey, if you don't want to use that big, beautiful brain of yours to think any deeper about the media that you consume, then, you know, who am I, you know? Sometimes it is nice to just turn your brain off and watch your comfort show. However, of course, the issue is always going to come when you use that against other people to try and discredit them looking deeper into the show. There is nothing like One Piece in this world. People are comparing One Piece to a modern day Odyssey because it honestly is. A tale of adventure and whimsy, but also a tale of revolution and doing what's right. and creating the freedom that you wish to see in this world. A show where a drag queen can give you free trans healthcare is just as important as a defectee Marine who starts a revolutionary army. Where a show where every man, woman, and child gets this beautifully crafted backstory that makes this world truly feel alive. One Piece is a show that, yeah, it is about the friends we met along the way, because those are who you're fighting for. And if you're not fighting for them, what are you fighting for? I hope that through this video, you found your reason to start One Piece. And if you're already watching One Piece, I hope I gave you a reason to go back and maybe look a little bit deeper into the themes and do more of a literary analysis on the show that you love so much. Either way, I can't wait to see you on the Grand Line. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you did, you are a real one. I have been filming so long, the sun is going down. Awesome. I really thought that this video was going to be as long as my mouth washing one, which is like 30 minutes long. I should have known by now that's not how I roll. I don't know why I keep thinking that. I hope, however, this video helps you understand a fraction of why I love One Piece so much. There are very few pieces of media that have had such a profound impact on me, and One Piece is definitely up there at the top. So absolutely shout out to Crystal Chanel for getting on here and being like, hey, go fucking watch this, like, please. And I understand it now. I get it now. I do. This show really changed my life, and I've been so hesitant to cover it, but I'm glad we've kind of ripped that band-aid off, because I have a lot to talk about. Usopp, you will be next in December, make no doubt about that. If you want first access to any of the forums that I put out about said videos, then you can join my Patreon. It gives you access to the Discord, first access to literally everything. You get first access to the vlogs that I've been putting up on my vlog channel. I put out an October one, and November one should be coming soon, because it's the end of the month, so be on the lookout for that. If you're a part of the Patreon, you get a discount on my store, of which I have a bunch of new stickers, and it's the last store update of the year. So if you want anything like that, then go ahead and hit up my store. International peeps, you have Etsy. I'm really excited for the next month. We're gonna end this year with a bang. Thanks again for 30K. I love y'all so much. Here are my lovely Patreons now. And hey, I will see you in the next video. Love and peace. I love how fucking washed out he is. Like, I could have turned down the contrast, but I actually think it's more fun this way.